Incredible 8-year-old reveals hidden truth on Mother's Day, transforming principal's perception. Lily's heart raced as she pored over the contents of the dusty attic. Sunlight streamed through a nearby window, illuminating old boxes and long-forgotten treasures. The air was thick with mustiness, but all she could think of was her mother's smile and how much she wanted to celebrate her this Mother's Day. This year, Lily had the perfect idea. An art project that showcased her undying love and gratitude for Sarah, her single mom who worked tirelessly to provide for them. Yet, the deeper she dug, the more the weight of unspoken family history began to press down on her small shoulders. As her eager hands sifted through fragile papers and tarnished photographs, her fingers brushed against something smooth and heavy. Curiosity ignited a letter. Unfolding it, she discovered her grandmother's beautiful handwriting, full of love yet tinged with pain. It spoke of poverty, struggles against judgment from others, and powerful resilience. Each word sank into her heart like a stone. Lily's chest felt tight, her breath came in short bursts, and a whirlwind of emotions churned within her. What she read ignited a newfound inspiration, but also a conflict. How could she share this? Would her classmates understand the importance of her grandmother's fight, her mother's sacrifices? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Lily had a choice. The Mother's Day assembly was fast approaching, and her idea morphed into something larger, a tribute, not just for her mother, but for the lineage of strong women in her life. The thought terrified her. What if she stumbled over her words or, worse, laughed at? What if the principal, Mr. Thompson, who held a hard stance against anyone he deemed not fit for the spotlight, didn't he let her speak? With each passing hour, her excitement twisted into fear, her resolve flickering like a candle in a gusty wind. Governance, expectations, and bias swirled around, constricting her throat with uncertainty. Then came the day of the assembly, the gym buzzing with energy. Lily's heart beat like a drum in her ears, drowning out the excited chatter of her classmates. From the stage, she could see Mr. Thompson standing off to the side, his crossed arms a barrier, his expression unreadable. As she approached the microphone, a warm haze of vulnerability enveloped her, yet she remained unwavering. Would he hear her? Would he understand? Her voice quivered as she spoke of the struggles her grandmother faced, a mirror reflecting her mother's hard work. An urgency surged within her. As she shared their story, she peered into the audience to find Mr. Thompson watching intently. His brow furrowed, deep in contemplation, perhaps starting to question everything he had held to be true. Lily's courage flowed through her words, filling the room with an emotion that transcended judgments and biases that hung there like dust. Would he allow himself to see the truth through her innocent eyes? In that delicate moment, it felt like the world paused. The weight of her family's legacy rested not just on Lily's small shoulders, but on the very perception of a principal who had missed so much. Would he open up anew, or would he retreat into his comfort zone? The tension filled the gym, leaving a precipice of possibility hanging in the air, unanswered questions doing somersaults in the silence. Lily felt a surge of adrenaline as she stared at Mr. Thompson. His rigid posture began to shift, she could almost see the walls around him start to crack. Confidence nudged its way into her heart, like a new branch growing from a long-battered tree. Every gaze from her peers felt like a tether, anchoring her to a moment larger than herself. Yet it was the uncertainty of how Mr. Thompson would react that loomed heavier than ever. When she finished speaking, there was silence. A deep, penetrating quiet that hung in the air like the stillness before a storm. Thoughts swirled chaotically in her mind. Had she made an impact? Or had she simply exposed family secrets that would only lead to disappointment? Her heart, a metronome of hope and anxiety, quickened further as Mr. Thompson finally leaned forward, his expression shifting from a rigid frown to surprised contemplation. "Thank you, Lily," his voice broke through the stillness, steady yet unassuming. "It takes a lot of bravery to share your family history like that." The gym erupted around her, a cacophony of applause and whispers, but Lily only tentatively absorbed the warmth of their appreciation. To accept the adoration felt foreign. She had only fulfilled a duty of love. How could it inspire such fervent approval? In the following days, she walked through the halls with a new sense of purpose, feeling almost weightless. Some classmates approached her, asking questions about her project. For the first time, she engaged openly, explaining the deeper connections in her work, her family's struggles, and the importance of resilience. She listened as her peers reciprocated their own stories, feeling threads of solidarity weave between them. But with this newfound attention came a sense of responsibility. A part of her craved acknowledgement, to be liked and admired, but another, fiercer part craved genuine understanding, a connection that went beyond superficial recognition. How many others carried the burdens of their family's fight silently, just like her? Then, one afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue in her room, Lily discovered something unsettling on her desk. A note slipped beneath a pile of books. The handwriting was jagged, almost angry. It warned her to stop sharing stories that could hurt others, claiming that she would tarnish the reputation of her mother and grandmother. Intrigued yet unsettled, she sat alone, absorbing every word and letting doubt slither into her mind. What if they're right? She whispered to herself. What if I really do hurt them? The tug-of-war between continuing her advocacy and fearing backlash thrashed inside her. This wasn't just a playful admiration anymore, it demanded courage. She wasn't sure she owned that in school. Lily's interactions with Mr. Thompson shifted. No longer merely an authoritative figure, he began to approach her with a sincerity that resonated. After classes, he often asked for her thoughts on various topics, encouraging her to articulate how the challenges she faced shaped her. With every conversation, he transformed from a stern principal into a mentor, stirring something within her that proposed possibilities she hadn't imagined before, but with Mr. Thompson's encouragement came heightened stakes. As he began to challenge her thoughts, pushing her to delve deeper into her feelings and motivations, the fear within her loomed larger. Could she remain authentic amidst so much external pressure? In those moments, she found herself on the brink of significant growth, but the inkling of self-doubt whispered, urging her to retreat. Sitting at her desk, grappling with the note's threat and the weight of expectations, an intense decision loomed. How far was she willing to go to embrace her voice? She could either bury her truth to keep a fragile peace or risk everything for the chance to ignite deeper conversations that had the potential to change perceptions, not just of her, but of her whole family legacy. The complexity of her journey loomed ahead, and as she stared at the note again, determination ignited within her, whispering, "This is just the beginning." The next morning, a palpable tension clung to the air as Lily stepped into the school. The note haunted her thoughts, each word echoing a reminder of the potential backlash for her vulnerability. As she navigated the bustling hallways, the whispers seemed louder, the glances sharper. She hesitated at the threshold of her third-period class, anxiety knotting in her stomach. What if her peers began to judge her? What if they turned the stories she shared into ammunition? Yet, deep within her, the flame of resolve flickered, urging her forward. She chose to embrace her truth rather than cower in the shadows of fear. Sitting quietly at her desk, she recalled Mr. Thompson's words. His faith in her voice illuminated the dim corners of her mind. Embracing her narrative was more than telling her family's story, it was a conduit for claiming her own identity. As class began, she found herself looking to Mr. Thompson, who had positioned himself at the front, intent on guiding his students in a discussion. With every question he posed, Lily felt the weight of her experiences transform into intellectual fodder. Her words had merit, and they mattered. She could feel Mr. Thompson's gaze scanning the room, landing on her more often than not, encouraging her to contribute. Finally, emboldened, she raised her hand. "I think stories matter," she said, her voice steady enough to cut through the noise. "Every time we share, we connect. My grandmother overcame incredible odds, and sharing her struggles helps me understand my own challenges. Several peers nodded, and she noticed Steve, a once aloof classmate, lean in to hear her more clearly. For once, she felt seen. The anxiety that usually churned in her gut now transformed into a buoyant energy. Mr. Thompson smiled at her, a warmth that multiplied her confidence. "Excellent point, Lily," he responded, his words laced with encouragement. "Stories, when approached with care, can heal rather than harm." A knot in her chest loosened. They weren't mere whispers after all. Conversations around her began to open avenues for shared experiences, proving to be much stronger than she had anticipated. After class, Lily approached Mr. Thompson, her heart racing with the thrill of proving to herself that she could address concerns. "What if I share my family stories through a project at school? I mean, structured and thoughtful." His brow furrowed slightly, contemplating. "That's a bold idea, Lily. We could discuss it further. It would have to be done delicately, keeping the concerns of your family in mind." She nodded, grasping this new project as an opportunity to reclaim her narrative, to present it with respect while facing the challenges it entailed, yet the thought of her family weighed heavily on Lily's heart. What if they didn't support her decision? What if sharing their history further exposed their secrets? With newfound determination, she decided to speak to them. Beginning with her grandmother felt right. She'd always been the anchor of their family, and her words could either ignite or extinguish the very flame within Lily. That evening, she hesitated outside her grandmother's door, the enveloping silence pressing on her. Taking a deep breath, she raised her hand to knock and felt the tremor of anticipation flood her. This was at the moment where she would either solidify her path or falter under the weight of obligation. As her grandmother opened the door, a mix of love and apprehension washed over Lily. Would she understand? Would she be angry or willing to share the stories they had clung to so tightly? "Can we talk?" she asked, hoping to bridge the gap that had always felt so chasmal between their pasts. As her grandmother nodded, the warmth of acceptance cocooned Lily, yet within it lay the seeds of uncertainty. A conversation that could shape her future was about to unfold, and it pressed against her in exhilarating waves of worry and hope. The moment she'd long been waiting for was finally upon her, but would she be ready for the truths that lay ahead? As Lily stepped into her grandmother's dimly lit living room, the familiar scent of lavender and old books enveloped her like a warm embrace. She could feel the weight of her grandmother's gaze, a mix of curiosity and concern that stirred both anxiety and anticipation within her. The room, filled with the artifacts of a life lived fully, seemed to pulse with unvoiced stories, each one a thread in the tapestry of their shared history. "Lily, what's on your mind?" her grandmother asked, her voice gentle yet probing. This was it, the space was safe, the moment ripe for honesty. How could she convey the tumult of feelings swirling within her? "I want to talk about our stories," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I want to share them at school. It feels like it could help others." The words tumbled out in a rush, each one infused with an urgency she could no longer contain. Her grandmother studied her for a long moment, the creases on her face deepening as she weighed Lily's request. "You know, some stories are heavy," she finally replied, her tone reflective. "They can bring light, but they can also unearth shadows." Lily's heart raced. This was not the simple affirmation she had hoped for, it brought forth a cascade of questions. "But that's the point, right? To understand where we come from. What if sharing makes it better? Like how Mr. Thompson said it could heal?" Her grandmother leaned back, considering. "It's bold, Lily. You can't unshare what's been shared. Are you ready for that?" Lily paused, the implication sinking in. The risk of exposing secrets had always loomed like a specter in her mind, threatening to unravel the foundation of her family's narrative. Yet now, anchored by a newfound confidence, she felt eager rather than frightened. "I think so. I just want to honor our story. If that means facing pain, then it's worth it." A flicker of admiration softened her grandmother's expression. "You've grown, haven't you? Times change, and perhaps how we view our stories must change, too." The tension in the air began to soften, replaced by a tenuous understanding. "Can you help me figure out which stories to share?" Lily asked, her heart swelling with hope. "I want them to see how strong we are." The conversation shifted, gradually revealing the threads of their shared past, the struggles and triumphs that had characterized their family's journey. Each recollection painted a fuller picture, transforming the daunting shadow of secrets into something she could harness, something empowering. After hours of conversation, Lily felt exhausted yet exhilarated. Her mind buzzed with the richness of the stories now laid bare between them. But beneath the excitement lurked lingering doubts. What would her classmates think? Would they see the love or only the scars? As she left her grandmother's house, the twilight air was crisp, filled with the fading echoes of an enlightening day. Yet, doubt gnawed at her gut. She had taken a brave step, but what if the vulnerability she sought to share would lead to ridicule instead of connection? What if she uncovered an uncomfortable truth not only about her family but about herself in the process? Meanwhile, her grandmother's voice resonated in her mind: "You can't unshare what has been shared." That night, as she tossed and turned in her bed, Lily contemplated her project. Would her family stand with her when the time came to unveil the layers of their histories? And, in laying bare her truths, what other hidden aspects of herself might she discover in the process, both beautiful and painful? Just as she began to drift off, a sudden realization jolted her awake. What if there were more stories to tell, more perspectives to consider? She grabbed her notebook and scribbled down a fleeting thought: the depths of family secrets can lead to unexpected revelations. With a newfound sense of urgency, she felt compelled to take action, but how could she find the balance between loyalty to her family and her own desire to be seen? The decision was becoming more complex, and as dawn approached, the crux of her journey loomed ever closer. Would she be courageous enough to bear witness not only to her family's legacies but also to her own evolving identity? The answers awaited, shrouded in the veil of the next chapter of her life, and she could hardly contain her yearning for discovery. Lily awoke with the sun streaming through her window, illuminating the creases in her notebook where her thoughts rested like fragile secrets. The scrawl of her last idea lingered in her mind, eating away at her pretense of certainty. Could her endeavor genuinely bridge the gap between her identity and her family's reputation? As she prepared for school, her thoughts spun in a chaotic dance. Each morning ritual felt heavier, infused now with the potential consequences of her project. Would sharing meld her identity with those external ties, or would it sever her from the family she aimed to honor? Sitting in the cafeteria, the chatter around her buzzed like background noise. Instead of being distracted, she found herself acutely aware of the conversations that floated through the air. A group of her classmates laughed boisterously, sharing tales of summer adventures that blurred past summers into mundane echoes now devoid of magic. She felt a sharp pang of longing. Those were stories she knew intimately, yet hers felt vastly different, tinged with complexity and, perhaps, heaviness. After lunch, seated in her English class, Lily's hands fidgeted in her lap. The teacher announced the upcoming project: share a story that has shaped who you are. An electric thrill shot through Lily. This was her moment. She exchanged glances with her friend Sarah, who whispered, "You'd be perfect at that." The encouragement ignited a flame of determination within her, but as the days turned into an anxious countdown, a looming question persisted: how would her family react to her vulnerabilities being laid bare? Each night, she pored over her notes, wrestling with what to include and what to leave unsaid. The exploration of her family's histories could illuminate understanding or expose them to scrutiny. When Friday arrived, her heart thudded with both anticipation and dread. Standing before her classmates felt monumental, like summiting an invisible peak. She recalled her grandmother's words, the weight behind them, the warmth. This story was not just hers, it was a collective memory shaped by generations, a bid to break open silence and let light stream in. As the teacher called her name, Lily stood, the eyes of her peers reflecting a mix of curiosity and judgment. She could almost hear her heartbeat echoing in her ears as she took a deep breath, swallowing hard to dissipate the lump lodged in her throat. "Today, I want to share the story of my family," she began, her voice quivering but resolute. Immediately, she felt her grandmother's spirit supporting her, encouraging her to keep going. It's not just a story of struggle. It's a tapestry of love, resilience, and, yes, some shadows. She glanced at the students, gauging their reactions, unsure if they were absorbing or dismissing her words. But as she recounted the trials they faced, she recognized glimpses of empathy reflecting back at her. Her classmates shifted, some exchanged glances of understanding, their laughter fading as they leaned in, tension fading with interest, yet mid-story, doubt crept in like an unexpected chill. Could her vulnerable revelations resonate with them, or would they label it as too dark, too loaded? As she continued, detailing the harrowing struggle of her family histories intertwined with her own journey of self-discovery, she hit pause to absorb the moment. The story's climax, inspired by hidden insights from her grandmother, she drew on personal anecdotes that mirrored universal themes of love and acceptance. As she spoke, unlocking burdens that had weighed her down, an unexpected warmth spread through her, a sense of release, even a small semblance of relief. The end of her presentation brought a raw silence, the kind that hangs thick with contemplation. With a shaky exhale, she finished, and while we are often defined by our past, it's the present that shapes who we become. The bell rang, shocking her from her reverie. Students began to stir, but before she could sit down, the murmurs rose. "Wow," Sarah whispered, eyes wide with admiration, while others approached to express their thoughts. Some shared their experiences, others simply nodded, affirmations of connection blooming in the air, but amidst the swell of support, a familiar shadow emerged. An unease nagged at Lily. What would her grandmother think of how much she had revealed? As the day progressed, her thoughts began to spiral, eroding the joy she had briefly savored. Had she crossed a line, unraveling a delicate thread that held her family together? The conversation surrounding her swirled like a storm cloud above her, and as she walked to her next class, a mix of pride and doubt weighed heavily on her shoulders. The moment of truth had propelled her forward, marking not the end but the beginning of a deeper journey. Lily had opened a door, but what lay beyond was a maze of uncertainty and revelation. And one question loomed larger than before: could the truths she uncovered about her family bolster her identity, or would they forever alter the fabric of her bond with them? As she sat down in her next class, ready to engage but feeling a sudden chasm of vulnerability, the stakes felt higher than ever. What awaited her in embracing these revelations? Would they ultimately redefine her familial ties, or would they lead to unexpected estrangement? The answers flickered tantalizingly close, but remained shrouded, waiting for her to summon the courage to pursue them further. Lily stared at the blank page of her notebook, each line an invitation to explore the thoughts swirling within. The exhilaration from her presentation had been palpable, but now it felt like a ghost, hovering in the corners of her mind, reminding her of the rawness of her revelations. She chewed the end of her pencil absent-mindedly, battling the uncertainty gnawing at her heart. The supportive nods from classmates were thinning in her memory, overshadowed by the image of her grandmother's reaction, the weight of familial bonds lurking just behind her every thought. In this moment of introspection, she realized she was at a crossroads. The impact of her story had begun to echo through her life, affecting not just her classmates but her family as well. With the confidence her presentation had sparked, Lily felt compelled to reach out, to confront the feelings brewing around her. But how would she bridge the gap between vulnerability and her family's perception? Determined, she resolved to talk to her grandmother. The notion sparked both hope and dread. Would this bring clarity or unrest? Perhaps, she thought, her grandmother had experiences of her own that could complement Lily's newfound understanding. The idea flared with warmth and anticipation, nudging her toward a conversation she felt both apprehensive and invigorated to initiate. That evening, as dusk draped the sky in hues of pink and purple, she found her grandmother in the living room, engrossed in a book. Taking a deep breath, Lily approached, her heart racing at the thought of baring her soul once more. "Grandma," she said, voice steady yet tentative, "can we talk?" Her grandmother looked up, eyebrows raised with curiosity. "Of course, dear. What's on your mind?" Lily fidgeted, the weight of her thoughts threatening to spill from her in a torrent. "Today, I shared our family's story in class. I talked about our struggles as well as our love, but I worried I revealed too much. She hesitated, seeking the right words. What do you think about that? Her grandmother set her book aside, leaning forward with a thoughtful expression. Every family has its shadows, Lily. I admire your courage. But remember, sharing is an act of love, it's how we connect, not just with others but with ourselves. Stories can heal. The warmth in her grandmother's voice nodded gently around Lily's heart, emboldening her. Did you ever feel like you exposed too much? She asked, a thread of vulnerability weaving through her words. Many times, her grandmother replied. But I've come to realize that our true stories bring light. They reveal strength and connection, even when it feels uncomfortable. Encouraged by her grandmother's insight, Lily felt a small shift within her, an echo of understanding that began to reshape her fears. I want to share more, she said impulsively. But I'm scared it'll hurt us instead of helping. The older woman nodded, her expression grave yet soothing. It's a risk, my dear. Sharing brings the potential for hurt and misunderstanding, yes. But it can also open doors for conversations that need to be had. It might help you discover parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. A cascade of revelations washed over Lily. The implications of her words were vast, carrying an undercurrent of accountability, of ownership. Beneath her grandmother's reassurance, she sensed a shift not just in her perspective, but in her identity. It was as if she had unearthed an untapped wellspring of courage, one that could expand beyond narratives of her family into tales of her own, but as she pondered this newfound strength, doubt clung to the edges of her thoughts. What if her voice echoed too loudly, demanded too much space? Would she face resistance not only from her family but within herself? Later that night, lying in bed, the tension in her stomach twisted tighter. In seeking to embrace her past, she realized she must also prepare to confront the futures it could disrupt. The stakes of honesty were climbing. Would her confession create an even stronger fabric to bind her family together, or would it unravel the very thread she aimed to preserve? As Lily turned off her bedside lamp, she felt an urge to write again, to jot down every thought that stumbled through her mind. She picked up her notebook, poised with the pen hovering above the page, and realized she was on the brink of deeper revelations yet unfurling. With her heart racing, she committed to capturing her journey, knowing that every step forward might bring her closer to both truth and uncertainty. The next chapters of her life promised to delve deeper. How would she navigate the delicate interplay of family and identity? The thought lingered like a question unspoken, heavy with potential. And with each word she penned, the deeper she knew she was moving into unknown waters, ready to uncover yet another layer of her own identity hidden beneath the surface. The next morning arrived too quickly, its brightness seemingly mocking the turmoil that had taken root in Lily's mind. She stirred awake, the sunlight streaming through her window felt almost intrusive, illuminating the doubts that still coiled like restless serpents in her stomach. Thoughts oscillated between excitement for what might come next and the weight of potential conflicts looming ahead. After breakfast, she decided it might be helpful to put her newfound resolve into practice. She found herself desperately wanting to write, to narrate her thoughts as both an exercise in self-discovery and a clarion call to face the challenges within her family dynamics. The day unfolded in a haze of fleeting moments, each filled with introspection. Lily sat at the kitchen table, a pen grasped tightly in her fingers. As she wrote, she shifted between feelings of empowerment and vulnerability, crafting paragraphs filled with her aspirations and fears. Each line chased the previous one, stirring layers of emotion she hadn't yet processed. Memories of whispered family secrets and half-formed anecdotes began to transform into concrete words on the page, illuminating paths she could tread. Beneath her writing lay a premise of defiance, a question that demanded to be answered: could honesty be the catalyst for healing? Maybe the stories she had kept hidden, both her own and those of her family, were not just burdens, but gifts waiting to be unwrapped. Yet, what if, upon unveiling these gifts, there were fragments that fragmented her family instead? Mid-afternoon, Lily decided a break from writing would alleviate some of the pressure. She wandered outside, contemplating the vibrant colors of the spring garden blossoms that unfolded fearlessly with every ray of sunlight. Not far, she could see her grandmother watching her, a gentle smile playing across her lips. It hit Lily then, like a jolt, her grandmother had chosen to embrace her own truth, and perhaps it was time for Lily to do the same. She crossed the yard, her resolve hardening. "Grandma, can we talk about our family again?" The words tumbled out before she could hesitate. The air thickened with anticipation, each breath filled with the weight of all they might share. "Of course, sweetheart," her grandmother replied, her tone soothing yet inviting curiosity. Seated on the porch, with the gentle rustle of leaves creating a backdrop, Lily felt exposed in a way that was invigorating. "I want to know more about your past," she began, the words surfacing alongside memories of heartfelt stories told, and those left untouched. "What was it like when you had to face the truth about our family?" The older woman leaned back, her hands cradling her own memories as if they were fragile artifacts. "It wasn't easy, there were moments of denial, fear of disappointment, the fear of breaking what we had," she reflected, her voice steady. "But sharing those truths with loved ones brought us closer. We learned to embrace our vulnerability instead of running from it." A conviction stirred inside Lily, an awareness that her own journey to honesty wouldn't just reshape her relationship with her grandmother but might resonate through generations. She leaned in closer, the connection between them strengthening with every revelation. "What if I want to share my story with others, Grandma? Am I strong enough to carry that burden?" "Yes, Lily," her grandmother affirmed. "Stories belong to the teller. You will decide how to share and when. Your truth is your gift to the world, and it can resonate with others who feel the same." An ember of courage burned brighter within her as her grandmother's words sank in. The notion electrified her very being. Sharing wouldn't mean losing her family identity, it would enable her to shape it into something luminous. Each hesitation she felt shrank beneath the promise of connection and understanding, yet, as excitement took root, shadows from the past began to whisper again. What if her voice would open wounds too painful to face? Would her family's safety derive from silence, or might it instead flourish in truth? With each thought, she felt the ever-present tug-of-war between discovery and risk swelling between her aspirations and her fears. As evening cast a melancholy hue over the world outside, Lily returned to her notebook, eager yet hesitant to pen her thoughts. Would this revelation truly lead her, or was it a spiral towards uncertainty? She hesitated, the pen hovering as questions poured into her mind like raindrops in a storm. What awaited her on the other side of her storytelling? The answers danced at the edge of her thoughts, as tantalizing as they were terrifying. The next chapter of her journey was already unfolding, promising new struggles that would test her newfound awareness, her identity, and the strength of her voice. Would she rise to meet the challenges that lay ahead, or would she falter under the weight of her discoveries? The world awaited the next strokes of her pen, but first, she had to confront the tempest within. Lily's grip tightened around her pen as she sat at the kitchen table again, the late evening light casting long shadows across the page. The words fluttered in her mind like fallen leaves, vibrant yet out of reach. She felt a renewed urgency driving her thoughts. It was as if writing had become a lifeline, a means to wrestle with the very essence of her family's narrative. She inhaled deeply, searching for the clarity that had eluded her moments before. What was she truly afraid of? The looming specter of the past? Or was it the unknown future that threatened to unearth long-held secrets? Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, both a source of comfort and challenge. Your truth is your gift. With each stroke of the pen, she began to articulate her resolve. Her pen started moving more confidently, crafting the story of her family's struggles, the secrets shrouded in silence. Describing moments of pain, her mother's anger simmering just beneath the surface, her father's quiet retreat from the fray opened a floodgate. She wrote about the echoes of arguments that once filled their home and how they built a fortress of avoidance around their realities. Lily's commitment to honesty began to transcend mere reflection. It morphed into an awakening of her own voice, which had long been muted by adherence to familial peace. The realization hit her like a bolt from the blue. Each family story she unveiled now seemed to shimmer with potential, waiting to breathe life into her truth. But would the burden of this unearthing taint her relationships? Would unveiling the past also reveal cracks in her family foundation? A sudden gust of wind rattled the window panes, causing her to pause. It felt like a metaphor for the storm she was summoning. The very act of writing felt like a rebellion against years of silence. She needed to prepare herself for the reactions that her revelations might provoke. Her heart raced, torn between the thrill of exposure and the dread of collision with unprepared family members. Lily recognized that, in some ways, she was already stepping into the role of truth-teller not just for herself, but for her family narratives. The echoes of her grandmother's experiences filled her with the resolve to be brave, crafting a legacy of understanding instead of lingering resentments. She paused, reflecting on the generational effects of silence. Each unspoken truth had cemented a wall around their experiences, reproducing cycles of denial. But what stories awaited to be rewritten if only she would dare to voice them? The room felt smaller as the stakes escalated. What if her grandmother, the only family member she felt comfortable approaching, disagreed with her newfound determination to share more publicly? What if she questioned Lily's capabilities to handle the aftershocks of an unvarnished narrative? This uncertainty propelled her back to her notebook, a catalyst for thoughts emerging clearer now as she mulled over her family's past. The deep confines of her mind churned with the complexity of her identity, the trepidation of self-disclosure, and the paradox of loyalty entwined with the desire for freedom. Could her writing heal or harm? In testing the boundaries of love and loyalty, was she walking towards liberation or destruction? The questions closed in, each answer elusive. She penned one last line before the evening shadows enveloped her: true courage lies in the willingness to be seen, but is it worth the cost of being loved? As she flicked the notebook shut, a persistent whisper beckoned from the depths of her consciousness: who would she become if she chose honesty? Could crafting her truth open the door to not just her own freedom, but provide a transformative path for her family? As the final light of day faded, the unsettling thought hung heavy in the air: what if the truth she was desperate to share ultimately transformed not just her family, but herself in ways she was unprepared for? The battle was far from over, her journey still undefined, and the next step loomed: an encounter with her family that could change everything. With her heart pounding, she steeled herself for the decision that lay ahead. Would she have the courage to bring her words to the table? The morning light streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the pages of Lily's notebook that lay open on the table. The once empty page now resembled a battlefield, scrawled with ink that burst forth from her heart like the cascade of emotions she could no longer contain. Each word she penned symbolized a step toward unmasking not just her family's past, but her own identity, which had remained shrouded in the shadows of silence for far too long. As she sipped her coffee, Lily felt the weight of anticipation settle over her like a heavy cloak. Today was the day she had resolved to confront her grandmother, the one person she believed might understand the storm within her. This could be the turning point where she no longer hid behind the walls built around her family's narrative. It was time to unveil the truths that clung to her like stubborn weeds. The clock ticked ominously, each second amplifying her anxiety. Imagining her grandmother's reaction tightened a knot in her stomach. Would it be acceptance or rejection? A flicker of doubt crossed her mind, causing her to hesitate. What if her grandmother insisted on maintaining the status quo? Her drive to seek truth could shatter the carefully maintained peace in their family, but continuing to honor silence felt like a betrayal to herself. With a deep breath, Lily closed her notebook, forcing herself to rise from the table. The cutlery clinked softly as she began to prepare breakfast, rehearsing what she planned to say. Her grandmother would be arriving soon, and she needed to find the right words to express her newfound resolve. It was critical. She had to articulate not just her own hunger for honesty but the shared heritage that came with it. Moments later, the door opened, and the familiar scent of lavender wafted in as her grandmother stepped inside. Clad in a soft cardigan, her eyes sparkled with warmth, yet those same eyes bore the weight of unspoken burdens. They exchanged pleasantries, the mundane ritual binding them, but beneath the surface, a current of tension pulsed. After breakfast, the moment arrived, the one that would either cement the familial ties with an unbreakable bond or break them apart. Lily felt the pulse quicken in her throat as her grandmother began tidying up the kitchen. This was her chance. She took a breath, steadied her voice, and began speaking. "Grandma, there's something I need to talk about," she started tentatively, scrubbing a dish in an attempt to channel her nerves. "It's about our family, and the stories we hold." Her grandmother paused, a cautious expression crossing her face. "Stories?" she repeated, a slight wariness lacing her tone. "Yes. The ones that we don't talk about. The hurt, the misunderstandings. I want to share my thoughts on them," Lily continued, her heart pounding with each word. "I think they're important. I want to write about them." The kitchen fell silent, the only sound was the clinking of dishes. For a fleeting moment, Lily felt as if she were standing at the edge of an abyss, peering into the depths of what could be a whirlwind of feelings. "Lily, some stories are better left untold," her grandmother replied slowly, folding her hands over her apron, a gesture of deep protectiveness. "We live with these stories, but not everything needs to be shared with the world." Lily felt the shift in the air, an unyielding barrier rising between them. It clawed at her, as though the words had barely escaped their confines before her grandmother built back the wall they'd worked so hard to dismantle. "But Grandma," she said, her voice rising slightly, betraying her composure. "That's the point. Keeping them in the shadows only adds to the pain. I feel trapped, and I think feelings come and go." "Family is forever," her grandmother interrupted, her gaze intense but revealing hints of vulnerability. "You must consider the consequences." Caught between her grandmother's protective instincts and her own yearning for liberation, Lily hesitated. What if that liberation came at the cost of familial bonds? The internal struggle raged within. As the conversation drifted, Lily's resolve hardened. It was now or never. She realized that her narrative required not just her grandmother's blessing but also her own courage to pursue this journey, regardless of the outcome. Today was merely a prologue to the unraveling that awaited, but amidst the turmoil, one question rooted itself deep within, ominously poised to surface at any moment: how far was she willing to go to expose the truth she sought? Would the journey of self-discovery ultimately reveal more than just family secrets? With determination pulsing through her veins, Lily prepared for the confrontation ahead, knowing that this was just the beginning. The battle for truth was about to escalate. Lily stood at the threshold of a transformative moment, the harsh light of the afternoon sun spilling into her grandmother's cozy kitchen, illuminating the chasms of uncertainty that loomed. Yesterday, she had acted with bold fervor, eager to unveil the layers of her family narrative. Today, as discussions had flickered and flared, her grandmother's guarded words echoed in her mind like a cautionary tale, urging restraint. Yet between the two of them lay an unbreakable thread: the importance of honesty. "Grandma, I understand that some stories feel burdensome, but they are also gateways, paths that lead us toward healing," she began again, her voice assertive. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind, the exact words floating like lanterns illuminating her dark uncertainty. Her grandmother looked at her, a mix of admiration and apprehension highlighted across her features. "Child, it's the wrestling with the past that can unearth wounds we thought were long buried," she replied, her tone calm yet protective. "You might not be prepared for the emotional weight of those truths." A steely resolve flickered inside Lily. "But Grandma, sometimes we need to confront our scars to understand the beauty of healing. I won't sugarcoat it, I want to share our family's legacy in its entirety." For the first time, the weight of her fear transformed into palpable courage. "And it's not just our family. I believe others will find solace in hearing our stories, especially those who feel voiceless. We all carry burdens, and they deserve a space to be acknowledged." The words spilled out, bittersweet, rooted in loyalty but intertwined with a desire for liberation. Silence hung thick in the air between them, time suspended like a breath waiting to be exhaled. Her grandmother's expression softened, the storm within her eyes wavering. "You have grown, Lily. You inspire me. Just remember, words have power. It cuts through the silence but can also draw blood," she said, a hint of acceptance weaving into her caution. "Then let us tread carefully together," Lily proposed, feeling the warmth of their shared experience buoying her spirits. Help me curate our stories, but promise we will embrace them fully. Let us redefine our narrative, let us celebrate our strength instead of hiding behind our struggles. Hours later, as dusk settled into their home, perfumed with lavender and history, the two women began to peel back the layers of their pasts. They searched through old photos, reminisced about happier times masked by challenges, and recited stories that had long been reduced to whispers. With every shared laugh and tear, Lily discovered a profound connection to her heritage. It was as if those very words were the roots anchoring her identity. Days turned into weeks, and Lily's project began to take shape. Stories from the Heart emerged as more than an assignment. It became a meticulously crafted tableau of raw honesty and interconnected narratives reflecting the lives of courageous women in her family. With each passing moment, her self-doubt began to dissipate, making way for clarity and purpose. At the culminating presentation, she stood proudly in front of her classmates. This time, the nerves that rattled her had transformed into a fierce resolve. What had once seemed like a paralyzing fear of judgment now felt like an electrifying surge of energy. The familiar setting of the classroom brimmed with anticipation, but this was not merely a narrative she was delivering, it was a testament to her lineage, woven from love, resilience, and hard-earned wisdom. Sharing her project ignited an unexpected ripple effect. Classmates bravely opened up about their own experiences, reflecting the strength they had each cultivated over time. The ocean of understanding washed over the room as barriers fell. There, amidst the growing waves of empathy, Lily found a sense of belonging she had long craved but never quite grasped. Demar Thompson, once a figure draped in authority, stood at the back with a reflective expression as he witnessed the powerful exchange unfolding before him. The rigid lines on his face softened with the realization that the battle Lily had fought was one many students faced in silence, fear of unfolding stories that could liberate them. In that moment, as the applause swelled around her, Lily felt a sweep of deep satisfaction setting roots within her. Stepping into her authentic narrative was not just about her, it was a clarion call for countless others who felt stifled under the weight of their own untold truths. Weeks later, as she sat with her grandmother on the porch, the warmth of connection enveloped them both. What you did, Lily, her grandmother began with pride in her voice, was to illuminate the path for many. You took the stories that were deemed not worthy of the spotlight and turned them into something that resonates. Lily smiled, the gratitude and recognition resonating louder than any award. Her grandmother squeezed her hand, the bond between them now fortified with shared truths. You've not only reclaimed your story, but you've empowered others to find theirs too. That is no small feat. In this moment of clarity, Lily understood that facing fears never equated to losing oneself. It was, in fact, the beginning of a journey into profound self-discovery and fulfillment. She had become a voice of resilience, proving that narratives of strength were worth telling. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue across their faces, Lily felt a profound sense of confidence wash over her, affirming that growth was indeed forged in the fires of authenticity. She had not only shared her family's history, she had forged her own place within it. This was just the beginning of her story, and she could not wait to see where the next chapter would take her. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and amplify these transformative narratives. Don't wait even one more second to share.